I'd like to call the Monday, oh, is that me?
I think it's Zoom sound.
Monday, August 29th, 2022, regular Beacon City School District Board meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please also stand for a moment of silence for Linda Amoroso, who served as a teacher aide for the Beacon City School District. Thank you. Would you like to do roll call? Thank you.
Ms. Flynn,
Delayed.
Mr. Galloway.
Here.
Ms. Heath,
Here.
Ms. Bush,
Here.
Mr. Zhang,
Excused.
Mr. White,
Here.
Mr. Wolf,
Delayed.
Ms. Stadler,
Here.
Ms. Hewer.
Here. Thank you. Matt, would you review the fire exits, please?
Yes, exits are in the back of the LGI.
Thank you. Open to the public. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we're going to move on to our workshop. Tonight, we're going to have an update on our strategic plan through, I guess, through Matt and Zoom.
Right. Yes, we have been working with Gabby and Phoebe from Ed Elements since last year. And as we kind of are ramping up the design phase, which is going to happen this fall, we thought it would be a great idea to have them come and give an update about where they are. So they are here virtually tonight. And of course, I threw this at Mike Adamczyk at 3:30 today. So we are hoping that it all works. I'm sure it will. And so I'm going to turn it over to them. I'll be part of probably the answering of the questions. But we, just a brief little background. About 3.5 years ago, we did some initial strategic planning work with Jonathan Costa through a coaster with PNW BOCES. We were kind of getting ready to ramp things up, and actually we were getting ready to ramp things up February of 2020, and a lot of things went on pause then. We really focused on all the things we needed to focus on for the last couple of years, but last year we started re-engaging, this time with that element through a coaster through Duchess BOCES, which makes all of this work very affordable for us. And we had a committee meeting last spring with teachers, parents, administrators, and Meredith and Flora from the board. And so we're getting ready for the next phase of this, and they're going to talk us through it a little bit and share some background as well.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I'm going to go ahead and, can I get access to share my screen? Would that be okay? Looks like it might be disabled. But while we're doing that, my name is Gabby Hewitt, and I'm really excited to be here with my colleague Phoebe. As Matt mentioned, we have been longtime admirers of the work happening in Beacon, and we've supported in a few different capacities, most recently in strategic planning efforts. So we wanted to put together just a really quick overview of the work that we've done so far, and also give you a preview of what's left to come. So this is a really exciting sort of phase that we're moving into, and it feels like the right time to make sure that we're also sharing those updates with you all as the board. So tonight, I won't bore you too much with all the objectives that we had hoped to cover in this presentation, but really just 3 things that we wanted to get out of maybe the next 15 minutes. Is one, just wanted to make sure that you all felt like we were communicating the updates on the progress that we've made so far, and also sort of being really responsive to some of your thoughts on the work that's happened. We also wanted to get a little bit more tactical and share the roadmap that we have, the timeline of the work, where we've been, where we're headed next, because we're gearing up for sort of the second half of this work. So this is about the midpoint. And then like Matt said, we want to reserve some time at the end to answer any questions that you all have. So We had planned to maybe share an update for about 10 minutes and then reserve whatever time is remaining, 5 or 10 minutes, to make sure that we're answering any questions that you had as well. And you can see these pictures. My name is Gabby Hewitt, like I mentioned, and my colleague Phoebe is calling in as well. We've been supporting districts across the country and most especially in New York with strategic planning, so we're really proud of being able to sort of bring a localized approach with some national perspective as well. So this is just a quick overview of our methodology with strategic planning. I'll get more into the specifics of what each phase of work looks like. But from the highest level, I think the thing that we really pride ourselves on is creating different entry points throughout the different phases to bring in multiple voices. So we'll actually break this down and show you the different teams that we are working with in Beacon, and also show you at different phases how we activate those teams so that your community as a whole feels like they had lots and lots of entry points to be able to sort of share their perspective on what the next strategic direction for Beacon should look like. And the other thing that I want to call out is really sort of this third bullet point. One thing that we usually see with districts that we work with that have done strategic planning in the past is that they've done a really awesome job creating like a mission, a vision, beliefs that people can rally around. And the stopgap tends to be when they try to move into actions or action planning or measuring impact. And so the last phase of this work is really about setting you up to do that in using a method that we call sprint planning. So that's really what that's all about. And you'll see that the sprint planning is really a tool that prioritizes using latest and greatest data. So if population changes, if staff changes, if something sort of happens to disrupt Beacon in general, this is meant to be a process that helps you to be responsive to that while also continuing on with your vision, okay? All right, so I'll be quiet for a second, let you read through this, and then I wanna call out a couple of things, but at its essence or at its core, when you're looking at any district strategic plan, there's a good chance that it has some or all of these components. So I'll be quiet while you read through what those are. All right, and we find that this slide is really helpful. We've used it a lot with the steering team, which will sort of detail who that is. But whenever we look at what districts are hoping to achieve, we're able to really say that these individual components of a strategic plan are able to sort of give you that language to say, this is why we exist, this is our purpose, this is where we're headed. And so we worked with Matt early on to see what Beacon had already in existence and what was yet to be created. And so with Beacon in particular, the committee had done a lot of work, or a committee prior had done a lot of work to create a mission, a vision, and belief systems. And it felt like the feedback we were getting is that the beliefs were really core to what Beacon was about, and we didn't necessarily want to touch those too much. We maybe wanted to give a little bit more language to them, but for the most part, they still felt really relevant, and that was something we wanted to keep consistent. We wanted to revisit the mission and vision to make sure that we were updating it sort of post-COVID and making sure that everybody felt like the purpose and our future state or our desired future state was something that Beacon really felt was still relevant. And what needed to be built out was sort of the actionable items at the bottom. So pillars, and under each pillar, there would be objectives, an action plan, and strategies to get you there. And so what we've done so far, and we'll detail these in the next few slides, is we finalized the mission, the vision, the beliefs, and the pillars work. And so now we're ready to sort of take this visionary level and make it really, really actionable for the district to move forward. There's a few different phases that go hand in hand with those components. And again, we'll break this down a little bit more, but the first phase that we kicked off in the spring was really what we call plan and align. So this is where we try not to be too cookie cutter with our work. We really take this time to learn as much as we can about the district and create what's called a current state analysis and use that to drive some decisions that we make later on. So we'll show you what came out of that work. And then in the foundation phase, this is where we start to put some language to that analysis. So if the community is saying this one thing, then we want to make sure that we're addressing that in this part of the strategic plan. What we're moving into next is this one that is sort of bolded, the design and the launch phase. And so We've now done our current state analysis. We've created some things that are going to be the guiding forces of the strategic plan, and now we're going to move into designing how that's going to move to action. And we are set up to really launch this in December or January of this school year. All right, last thing that I want to share, and then I'm going to hand it over to Phoebe to give us a little bit more detail, are the teams that we've worked with so far. So on one of those first slides I shared, that's something that we really are proud of, is the amount of voices and perspectives that we bring into the strategic planning process. And we do that by activating different teams along the way. And so you can see the different team names and the purpose of each of those teams, as well as who is a part of that work. But the group that we have that's sort of making sure the day-to-day happens, calendaring the dates, making sure we're communicating updates, staying on the roadmap, is what we call the project team. And in any district, this is typically the superintendent and someone or 1 to 2 people that are cabinet level who are able to sort of be thought partners in decision making. And so that was what we call the project team. The project team also sits in the steering team. So you can see this blue team is a part of this larger pinkish team. The steering team is exactly what it sounds like. It's meant to steer the direction of the plan itself. It's also meant to be really representative. So this is where we sort of made some decisions around who should be a part of this work, who can commit the time to actually get this work done, and who can help be a thought partner with the project team to make sure that these decisions are being made in a way that is really representative of the larger Beacon community. And so the steering team includes different school level leaders, district level leaders, teachers, there's some board representatives, we have some community members, we have people that fit multiple hats, maybe they're a parent in Beacon and they're also a staff member, or they're more veteran or they're newer. Those are all valid perspectives that we want to bring in. In the next phase of work, what we're going to start doing is we're going to activate the design teams. And so this is where we take the steering team and we break them into smaller subgroups. And again, we'll sort of share the decision around how those small subgroups are made. And then we also say there's likely some other voices that are still missing here. If we have a small group that is working on student engagement, for example, and we don't have any student representatives in that group, that's where we would have the design team invite more people to be a part of that work, either as a full-time design team member or as an advisory team member. And all that means is they might say, well, we want a student focus group to advise us on some of the decisions we're making. So the purpose of this is really just, again, to create all of those entry points into this work. Okay. All right, I'm gonna have Phoebe actually bring you into the details of what we've done and where we're going. I'll highlight one more thing for you, and then if you have questions, we have some time at the end to do that too. So Phoebe, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Gabby. So this is a more detailed overview of the methodology of what we've done so far in those first 2 phases of our work. I'm going to focus on the stakeholder engagement events that we conducted last school year, and then talk about the decisions that the steering committee made as a result of that stakeholder engagement. So last spring, we had the opportunity to do 4 different focus groups with 48 total students across all schools. So we got to hear from lots of different grade levels, which was really awesome. And we also put out a community survey, which we got 451 responses, which was really awesome. And the biggest, here are the biggest trends that we pulled out from those student focus groups. I'll pause to give you a second to read through these. So students really had a lot of pride in their school and were really excited about a lot of the opportunities that they had, but there was expressed by the students just making sure that there is really access to those opportunities for all sorts of different students. And also students talked about the really strong relationships that they have with each other and with their teachers, but wanting to shift towards more of a student-centered classroom. And then we'll take a look at the findings from the community survey. And I'll go ahead and pause here again to give you a second to read. And I want to highlight here again, lots of opportunities that was expressed, making sure that those are equal across all of the different elementary schools in particular. People were really satisfied with the communication from the district level, but wanting to increase and clarify that at the school level. Those are some highlights from there. And then from this work, what we did is Gabby mentioned before, the steering committee used all of this information from the stakeholder engagement to write the mission and the vision. And then with those beliefs that already existed, that team fine-tuned those beliefs, added a little more to some of them, but really kept the essence of what those were. So I'll pause and give people a minute to read here too. And again, with those beliefs that already existed, just doing some fine tuning on them and making sure that they still felt relevant, which the steering committee decided that they really still did. So that was the first two phases. Then moving into more of where are we headed. So this is a roadmap of where we're going to be for the fall into the winter. So moving into that design phase and then the launch phase. So the goal is to really build out and make actionable the beliefs. And then what the steering committee is going to do, depending on how many pillars, is break up into those design themes. And each one of those design themes will focus on a different pillar and making that really actionable and building out goals and objectives for that pillars. Like Gabby mentioned before, if a team feels like they need some voices in the room that they don't have already or want to tap into different people in the school or community, they'll be able to bring in advisors to help them do that. So we have the mission, the vision, the beliefs, and then you'll see the pillars below. The steering committee iterated on these pillars a few times, and then the project team really solidified them. So what the design team is going to do is going to the steering committee is going to break up into design teams, each one of those focusing on one of these pillars. I'll pause and give you a second to read. You'll see that those pillars really mirror the stakeholder data that we collected during that first phase. And I'll go ahead and pass it back to Gabby to close us out.
Yeah, thanks, Phoebe. So the last thing we wanted to do is we wanted to honor the work that already existed and also honor what your community is currently saying about continued needs to move the district forward. And so some of the work that already existed, we talked about the belief statements, but the other thing that still felt really relevant is all of the board goals that you all set. And so what Phoebe and I were able to do was look at those board goals and sort of crosswalk, where do we see evidence of this strategic plan being able to help address those goals? And there's a really nice marriage between the two. And so it sounds like we're just able to really build off of some needs that your team has previously identified. If you look at the language of the mission, for example, there's a lot in there that talks about this idea of equity, excellence, this culture of care, thinking about how do we move the district forward and think about sustainability measures. The same could be said for vision, right? Again, equity, I think, is pretty prevalent across the board in every aspect of the strategic plan so far. The belief statements really honor the equity and the culture of care goals. And then for each of those pillars that Phoebe just mentioned, we see the ability to sort of address all of the board goals showing up in at least one or multiple pillars. So again, you can sort of look at this crosswalk of where we see those board goals living. All right, so as you're looking at that, if there's any slides you want me to go back to or give some more color to, we can certainly do that. If you have some questions that popped up for you, we can also stop sharing the screen and answer that. I know Matt's gonna be able to chime in because he's been a part of every single touch point as well. So would love to hear what questions you all have about this work or any of the things that we shared.
I understand that the sort of summary of the feedback is about laddering up common themes, but in the feedback from the students, did you get a sense of, I feel like we use these words like innovative or student-centered or those phrases without really defining what they mean. So I would love to know what the students felt was a student-centered classroom, or what extracurricular, like where they weren't here, how did they know some activities existed, but they were maybe missing opportunities for them? And also, as far as incorporating, specifically about feeling more connected, did they have examples of where they did feel connected and things that broke down that connection?
Yeah, these are all good questions. I could take a stab at answering these. So when it came to the curriculum or student-centered classrooms, some things that we heard is there are pockets of teachers who are creating those sort of more student-centered classrooms where students have choice in maybe assignment or path and pace. Maybe they have choice in sort of, what they're reading. It's aligned to the same standard, but there's different reading texts that go along with it. And then there's also areas where it's a lot of stand and deliver teaching, right? So students are sort of sitting silently, capturing notes, and it was a desire for more of the former, right? Like more places where student voice and choice came up.
Okay.
So that's probably the biggest theme that came up around the desire for student-centered classroom environments. In terms of the extracurriculars, I think this came up actually over and over again, where students recognize that there are a ton of extracurriculars. The problem is the actual ability to stay and attend those, right? I think quite a few times we heard, I'd love to join this club or this activity, but I have no transportation home after, right? Or I joined this club, but my friends had no idea that it existed. So can we more widely communicate that these opportunities exist?
And so was
So
that sounds like it would be junior high school up through high school, or were you hearing about that at elementary level as well?
It was sort of a mixed bag. The access part was more secondary, so middle or junior all the way to high school. At the elementary level, and Phoebe can add to this, we heard things like, and Matt's probably not going to like us saying this, but like wanting more foreign language opportunities. We know that there's a barrier to that, right? Like you have to be able to have instructors to teach those courses. But it was less around extracurricular after school and more around sort of the variety of specials classes or electives classes that were
And
offered
that
at
sounds
the
like
elementary.
that would be like a adult feedback, not kids asking for that specifically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was more in the survey.
Yeah. So just one last question about that. This is just because of being on the facilities committee. It would really be great to know in what ways, I'm specifically speaking to the student feedback. How do they feel like spaces are out of date? Like that would be helpful to know what they are looking for.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember off the top of my head the actual outdated part. What I do remember is feeling like maybe places were crowded. Or if they were logging on for Wi-Fi, for example, it was not as high speed as it could be. We have the full report too, but we could dig into that data and let you know a little bit more about that particular finding.
Will you be sharing the full report with the board? The
Sure.
raw data?
Yeah.
That
Yes.
would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to jump or piggyback on that, outside of this process, I do student focus groups every year too. And I hear a lot of the similar themes. Gabby said it more eloquently than I will, but essentially about the instructional part. Students from 4th grade through 12th grade really talk about wanting more hands-on, more cooperative learning. So working with each other and working hands-on. You just hear that over and over again. And when students talk to me about space, it's usually related to one of their special interests. Like it's either an athletic upgrade that kids feel like is needed, or something with the arts, it's usually related to, it's usually not a classroom space. It's usually like a performance space or something like that, from arts to athletics, that the kids usually weigh in on. What I typically hear. And just for the record, I'm not anti-world languages, Gabby. I just wanted to clarify. It's, staffing world languages is always a challenge. And so
Of course.
that's always what the part that we have to deal with on our end. But yeah, no, the feedback we get from the students is very powerful and very clear.
Yeah, these are all great questions.
Yeah.
We do have the full.
Gabby, I noticed you didn't mention kids questioning the bulldog as the mascot. You left that out.
Yeah, no, that did come up all the time. Students wanting a very unique mascot and saying every piece of bulldog.
We decided that we're not including that feedback in the overall strategic planning. We're just gonna stay the course on that for a while.
Logo's
Anyway.
logo. Hard to change.
Yeah. What other questions do you all have? Thank you I'm not sure who the board member was, but thank you for those questions.
Anybody else have any questions? I just wonder if you could talk a little bit more about how we measure, I love the idea of, being able to pivot if things change with long-term goals in mind, but I think I just wanted to hear you speak a little bit about measuring outcomes.
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you look at these 3 rows, objectives, action plan, strategies, every single pillar is going to have a certain number of objectives, and under each of those objectives we'll have an action plan and the strategies aligned. I think when we identify the objective, that's where we're going to put whatever the metric is that we're going to use to measure. So for example, let's say there's an objective around graduation, then there would be a metric around graduation rates, which I know you all already have in your board goals. So there would be sort of seasons where it makes sense to step back and look and see like who's on track to graduate, who is potentially not, and we can use that metric to make a decision around, do we need to pivot our counseling efforts? Do we need to pivot some other effort aligned to that? When we get into the launch phase, something that we do with the steering team is we talk about what goes into a sprint plan. We have you all define the length of a sprint. Sprints are meant to be pretty short, so 6 to 8 weeks, or the length of a single quarter if you wanted. And they're also meant to include what are called retrospectives, which are really guided protocols to be able to say, okay, like this is the objective we set. Here is the metric we said we were going to use. Let's look at what the data is currently telling us. And there's a lot of protocols we use in those retrospectives to have that discussion. And then from there, we would always just make a decision around, are we still on track to hit this objective in the time frame that we gave us, or are we not on track? It's sort of a vague answer because we don't know what those metrics are going to be just yet. But the hope is that by the end of the design phase, we will, right? We'll be able to say, by fall 2023, this is one outcome we hope falls under this pillar. Here's another outcome we hope falls under this pillar. And then set up the team with an action plan to be able to say, from now until that timeline, this is what we hope to accomplish.
I actually have a question. Yeah. You did the surveys with the community, parents, and then students. In the part where we're launching it, are we going to take time to then, when you're launching it, are you keeping the students in mind on how you deliver that information to them to show them that what they talked about and their concerns and how it's being, not how their information is being used in this strategic plan? I'm sure that information is going out. I'm sure we're going to, market it or whatever, but is it in a language that students can understand? This is from what you said, this is where it all lines up. And then same for the community, because reading it, obviously it takes time to process all of it. So it's a question and also a statement to say, when we're marketing and making sure that it's understandable to students and understandable to parents and what they said and what came from what they said.
Yeah, that's a great question. And Wanted to highlight this slide because the order of these events are pretty intentional for that very reason. So something that we're really proud of is that we're able to do sort of two things at once. One is we have a full-on, like, incredible design team that actually creates what we call collateral, and all that means is like the visuals that you have. So one-pagers, community announcements, all of that, branded sort of in a beautiful package for you. Before we want to bring in that team, we have this strategy session that we call communication planning. And it's sort of exactly what you said, right? We imagine that the collateral we give you is going to serve 3 different audiences. So we probably need like a full-on strategic planning. That'll be the thing that you want to post on your website. That would be the thing that your board probably finds the most useful. There would be maybe more of an abstract version, which is an overview that would be community facing. We've developed community facing one-pagers before for each individual pillar. So you don't just have one for your strategic plan, you would have one for academic excellence, and it would include that timeline, the metrics, all of that information. You'd have one for high quality curriculum. And then the third thing that we typically create for districts is the student-friendly language or the family-friendly language. So it would be a version of those one-pagers, but in a way that sort of gives the students the information that they need. And we do a little bit of an overview about how we arrived at that. So that would be where I imagine we say something like, when we ran these student focus groups, here's what we heard from you. And having like really nice, sort of succinct, student-friendly language, these bullet points. And from there, this is what we're working on in this pillar. So all of those decisions would be what comes out of the communication planning phase, and then we make sure that we hand that over to our design team to physically design all of the things that we would need to realize that communication plan.
And we're adding a few students to the design teams this fall. There's 2 days in October that we're meeting. And so we're going to work with people like Mr. Dwyer in the back on some students that will help us with that part.
Yeah, that's a great question. I know we're probably over the time we wanted to take from you all, but any other questions that we can answer?
Could you address the KPIs? I've heard that term. I can't remember what it stands for and exactly how that works in your scheme there.
Yeah.
Goals,
KPI
right?
just means key performance indicator, and it's a fancier way of saying a metric. So I think there's like 2 parts to it, right? Based on the objective, what is your target for, what's the criteria that's going to tell us whether or not we're making progress to this goal, and what's your target for that? So if I use the same graduation rate example, you might say, all right, our key performance indicator for this is our graduation rate, and our target is that 85% of our students are graduating within 4 years. So just a way to say this is what we're going to measure and show that we're making progress toward this goal.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. We'll add that metric language.
Any other questions? Thank you, Gabby and Phoebe, so much.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry we took a little bit more time, but we really appreciated the chance to meet with you all and share this update.
That's okay. It's really been an exciting process to be part of. I look forward to seeing its implementation.
Thanks. All right, well, we'll hop off, and if you have questions, feel free to funnel them through Matt, and we'll do our best to respond.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, thank you.
Before we go into,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to pull agenda item 11.04 BB from the consent agenda.
is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions?
What is that one about?
This is the appointment of Mike Carafano to the AP position at the middle school. We didn't want to have him wait through exec.
Oh,
I have a comment. I believe Mr. Harafano were you a student teacher at Sargent at first, or?
I was a phys ed teacher.
You were phys ed, but was that your first job in?
My first job was a perm sub at the middle school.
Okay. And then your first job was at Sargent. Yes. So I'm excited because it was such a loss to not have Mr. Carafano as part of the Sargent community anymore. And I'm so glad that he's going to be in a building where he gets to view of the cross-section of kids and in this really important role.
I just want to say that I have a picture of your leg from when I used to always take pictures of the Calico Ball, and this child was attached to you with such love and enthusiasm. So yeah, I've heard just wonderful things and very excited for this opportunity for you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. It's to pull it, then we have to vote on it.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
In favor of pulling it.
So all in favor of pulling it?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, there's 8 of us. Okay. I'm also in favor. Oh, is anyone opposed? Okay, I'm also in favor. Passes 8-0.
Now a motion.
Motion for. Go ahead. Make the
I'd like to
motion.
approve the motion 11.04 BB for Mike Carafano to be the assistant principal at at the Roundabout Middle School.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm also in favor. Passes 8-0. Congratulations, Mike. Can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual, and the board will return in 45 minutes?
So moved.
Anthony?
Second.
Second by Flora. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor. Passes 8-0. Thank you.
You just told me something new.
Okay, thank you for your patience. Reviewing the agenda, shoot. There are some changes. 11.03, non-instructional personnel list, item G has been added. 11.04, instructional personnel list. There are some highlighted changes, and I want to add to the highlighted changes, we are striking, sorry. We are striking in letter I, number 12, number 16 and 17 were already highlighted, but we're adding 12 to that. Okay, are there any, I don't see any, but are there any parent groups and/or student school presentations? Seeing none, superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. I'll be pretty brief, just a few updates. One, I have a feeling, or hopefully I won't be talking about a lot this year, but the New York State did issue their COVID guidance a few days ago, and essentially it is for, obviously no mask requirements, but there's also no quarantining and no required testing for either test to stay students or staff. So that's a huge change for us. We did a lot of that last year, and it's very welcome change. We're very excited about it. So, we'll just keep working with the local health department and work through any issues that we have. But there's really not, much in the way of COVID regulations anymore, which is great. The other side of this is just a really great return to in-person activities. And I know these things seem very basic, but I just wanted to highlight them. Many of us came into the board meeting tonight where we saw a lot of ninth graders touring the building with their parents, and that was great. Today and tomorrow we have sixth graders touring Roundabout during the day and getting a good feel for the school. On Wednesday, all of our staff comes back, our teaching staff, and we'll be welcoming them in the gym. And, we have different meetings and things we're getting ready for. And then on Thursday of this week, the elementaries have meet and greets. It's basically to drop off your school supplies and quickly get a chance to meet your child's teacher. So that's 2 to 3 at all the elementary schools. So it was really nice to just, last year it was so tentative and there were so many things we were still kind of working through at the beginning of the year. It's nice to just be kind of full steam ahead and welcoming parents back. We're trying to plan a lot more in-person things besides the things we did last year. We'll be sharing more details to come. But we're really looking, back to the strategic plan data. We're really looking for ways to engage our students more, both obviously during the school day, but outside of the school day, and involve our community in those efforts as well. So we're really excited to get this year started. Our basic messages that we're going to be sharing with staff as they come back is creating welcoming and affirming environments for our students, really thinking about access and opportunity and trying to create more of all of that for all of our students, and also really trying to celebrate the power of what we can collectively achieve. And so we're going to be doing a lot of celebrating when folks come back as well. So we're super excited, and I feel like I have 36 hours left to get ready for Wednesday. And so, hopefully, ready or not, everyone will be here. But we're very excited. And Meredith, you're going to be joining us for the welcome back, right?
See you there.
And the Beacon Foundation for Schools is going to join us too and just do a quick share about their grant program for teachers. So anyway, we cannot wait to get this school year started.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you. Committee reports, including board comments. Craig?
No, just looking forward to getting the committee meetings back in action here. That's where a lot of the good discussions take place.
Agreed. Kristen?
Yeah, just the facilities committee will be meeting on September 29th.
Actually,
Yeah, no? Okay.
there is an email following that.
After the last one with the updated committee
Yes. Anne Marie was suggesting if we're trying to do it with audit, the auditors would need another week to prepare. So I'm wondering if everyone is available on,
I wrote it in ink, that's all I'm gonna say.
sorry, it was just a suggestion. I'm not sure I can do the
At least
6th.
susceptible to that. Okay.
So we may have to do some emailing back and forth
Okay.
about that, because I have, the next 2 Thursdays are not good for me. And you said in general, Tuesdays and Thursdays are no longer good for you. Is Wednesday okay for you?
Mondays are good.
And so does Wednesday?
Yeah,
okay for-
I could,
Would
I
you
could do, but if we just want to kick it off for, getting things started. Emery, is it the external and the internal, or is it just because we usually get the external this time of year?
The external have to meet with you before October 14th is when the financials are due.
Right.
So I checked the date with her and it's a little too soon, so that's why she wanted to defer it. Internal audit is still doing their risk assessment, they're finishing it up, so it'd probably be after that they would come to one of the audit finance meetings.
Okay.
So since Thursdays are not going to work in general, how about October 5th for people? Would that work?
October?
It is, it's off.
Yom Kippur.
It's what?
It's Yom
Business school
Kippur.
on 5th.
Oh, there's no school on the 5th? Good to know. How about we have policy on the 3rd. We could maybe do it after policy, with policy?
That'd be
At least
audit
one
or
of them.
facilities.
What do you think?
Do you wanna split them for this, just this?
Yeah,
one
I
time?
think we should.
Yeah. So this would be audit.
I just wanna double check the date, just to make sure.
Yeah, this is
they
subject to
usually
your-
come Before the board meeting, but if we do it ahead of time, it'll give you more time with them.
Yeah. And they'll give us the letter and everything before that?
They'll give you the draft of the management letter and also the draft financial statements.
Okay.
I just have to make sure that they're,
Yeah, so
I
you'll,
can get back to you, Meredith.
okay, about the 3rd.
Okay.
Okay, and then for facilities then,
Matt, can we plan facilities, or do you need to check with Tetra Tech? Because they're going to be largely driving those meetings right now, right? Or are they not? Are we going to get an update? I mean, Perry did the update on the capital project over the summer.
Right. I mean, we could still do those on Zoom if we want, correct?
Can we,
Yeah.
I think if we don't need the outside person, we could set up the committee and then come up with the goals.
we
and-
haven't met, and we haven't met the new facilities director yet, so I wouldn't mind, even if Tetra Tech can't make it, I wouldn't mind just going.
Just set up the goals of the
That's-
committee.
that's-
like
I mean, should we,
schedule for the year.
do you want to do a triple header
Okay.
on the 3rd?
Well, I'm not at policy. It would be more on whoever else is on policy. And are you on
You're not
policy?
policy either.
No?
Yeah, so we're just audit. Are you on audit again this year?
I don't know. Yeah, I think so.
I think you are.
Someone put me
I
there.
begged
Yeah.
you, yeah.
Okay, so then we could do facilities and audit on the same night.
Because facilities could probably be short that night if it's just,
Meeting the new director, establishing the schedule, goals for the year.
let's say for now, and if they're,
And maybe prior to that date, Anne-Marie could work with the architect, Tetra Tech, and see if they could give us dates throughout the year. So we could work on that at the committee.
yeah,
I'd
for
really
the
like to
draft
set
calendar.
a year calendar, just so
I agree.
it's really busy.
It's in the procedures that I just sent out today, so,
That's why I'm reinforcing it, Meredith.
thank you.
He's foot stomping.
Did you want the accolades Meredith sent out and we're given?
No, that is not why I mentioned
It
it.
would just be huge.
You're such a praise hound, Meredith.
I know. Okay.
So what,
That was October 3rd.
October 3rd,
And I
that's a
think we'll do
Monday?
Audit at, wait, policies at what time?
So policy's normally at 7.
So we could do audit at 6,
and
policy, and then facilities, or,
Well, if that's the meeting when we're going to meet with the external auditors, we might want to not cut ourselves off at just an hour.
I think we could probably do it in an hour.
we should get the report ahead of time. So, right?
If we had
come
further
before the
questions,
3rd?
we could meet them again before the board meeting that they come to.
So you're talking about 6 o'clock.
I think it's a hardship for a lot of people to start before 6.
Well, okay, so can you do policy at 6 so that then audit and facilities are?
I don't think Anthony will be able to do policy at 6.
You can't. People are so hard.
So,
What do we have?
I
Audit
think
at
like
6?
policy at 6, audit at 6, policy at
it's up
7,
and
facilities at 8.
8.
Or we could flip facilities and policy. What do you think? Do you feel
I
like?
can, let me ask,
All right, so it's going to be on the 3rd, the order.
We'll figure, yeah, we can figure out the order once we hear from.
So right now, we have sort of a generic committee night on the 3rd of the details to be determined, is that it?
Correct,
Well,
yeah.
for facilities, it's going to be to meet the new director and
I
establish.
mean, in terms of how we split the time up, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One hour each.
we'll work out those details once we hear from the auditor. Okay,
That's it. That was my comment that turned into a quagmire.
thank you, Kristen, for that. Eunice?
No comment.
Okay. John?
No comment.
Anthony?
Nothing.
Alina?
No comment.
Laura?
Nothing for tonight. I just want to confirm that, yes, I'm good for the public relations, advocacy, and legislative meeting to be at 6 on the 11th of October, if that's okay with everybody else.
So far, so good.
Okay.
Great, thank you. And I wanted to just take a poll to see who is planning to go to the NISBA convention at the end of
I'm
October.
not going to go. I was trying to go, but
I won't be here.
Anthony, you're a yes for the convention. I'm also planning to go. It's- You have to do your training and everything, so you,
Didn't email Kelly yet.
I'm doing that right now.
okay.
Can you
Not right now.
put me down for NISBA?
I also wanted to mention to everyone that you were sent a link by Kelly to a survey for our retreat in September. Please,
It's on the 19th, right?
that is on the 19th.
Okay.
Wait, I'm just confirming that that's right. Yes, on September 19th. And if you can do the survey before September 8th, that would be great. And that's it for me. Thank you. We don't have any new business tonight, so moving on to the consent agenda. Sorry, my computer's moving very slow today.
think I already did this.
The use of,
Remember if I did the survey?
oh, the survey. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board members would like to pull from the consent agenda? I would like to pull 11, 12. And there was one other thing. And 11. Sorry. And 1104X. Can I have a motion to approve 11.01 through 11.11, less 11.12 and 11.04X, and as we already approved 11.04 BB earlier?
So moved.
Flora, is there a second? Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm also in favor, passes 8-0. Can I have a motion to approve 11.04X?
So moved.
Flora, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I just had a general question for this. If there, it says, appoint the following staff members at stipends according to the BTA contract. If there is anyone on this list who's not a member of the BTA, how is their stipend? Do they just get what the BTA contract is, or is it negotiated separately? Decided.
If they're a non-BTA member, they do, for chaperoning, they get the BTA rate.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve 11.04X?
So moved.
I'm sorry, we already have the motion. That was my, I never do pull it myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm also in favor, passes 8-0. Can I have a motion to approve 11.12?
So moved.
Kristen, is there a second?
Second.
Flora. My question here is, we had this on for first read last meeting, so I think this should be, say, second read. And also, we asked to have the title of it changed to Admission of Foreign Exchange Students. So I guess I'm going to make a motion within this motion to amend it to the second reading with the title for Admission of Foreign Exchange Students. So can I have does anyone second that motion?
Second.
Could you explain what you're changing? I'm not sure I
Yeah, so
recall.
this was actually on the last agenda, so it's already been approved for the first read, but at the last meeting, we asked to change the title and the number has now been changed. But we asked to change the title to Admission of Foreign Exchange Students. It's what we had discussed at the policy meeting.
You're just changing the title. I think it's very good that we've adopted a policy that encourages and sets out forth the rules, so.
Yeah, I agree.
And we have a student from Japan
Yes, we will have a student
who
this year.
will be our first exchange student this year.
What is it, do you know what grade level the student is? 10th? Very exciting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor, so that passes 8-0. And so that's the motion to change it, so then I need to do another vote for the final approval. So can I have a motion to approve the changed motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Eunice. Is there a second?
Second.
Flora, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, were there any questions? Sorry, did everyone understand what just happened? Everyone's in favor, I'm in favor, passes 8-0. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved.
Craig, is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor, passes 8-0. Thanks, have a great night, everyone.